Good Saturday morning. I'm going to give you one more shot at St. Mark, okay? This will be short and sweet. I don't think I'm going to go too long. It's 2 lines of the gospel, but they're potent. Jesus came with his disciples into the house. Again, the crowd gathered, making it impossible for them even to eat, okay? They were crowding in. The world was coming to Christ, okay? All right? When his relatives heard of this, they set out to seize him. His relatives turned on him. They said he was nuts. He's out of his mind. They said he's nuts. Isn't that interesting? Even from within his own family, his own friends said, this guy's not in a fruitcake. What the hell's he doing? You see? And yet the crowds were pounding on the door to get in. They wanted Christ. But his own relatives. You want to know the truth? His own relatives were the Jews. And they rejected. I didn't see it till this second. Just this second. Who were the relatives? The Jews. They rejected Christ. They said he's nuts. But the rest of the world was at the door. And I think that's the case right now. I think the rest of the world is at the door. Meaning outside the door, looking to come in. I really believe that. I really believe it. It's not going to be conventional Catholicism or Christianity. I think it's going to be a much deeper way. It's not going to be cultural Christianity. It's going to be personal. That's what I think. A colleague of mine said, I don't know the organization, but apparently there was a convention here in St. Louis. How many thousands of young people came in search of Christ? I believe that. I don't see that in my classes. I see those who fervently believe, but they're a minority, and those who fervently disbelieve. But I haven't seen what my colleagues saw. I hope she's right, of course. But I actually believe it. I think, the way I said it, I think I did it in one of these, I think I did it yesterday or the day before. I think our young people have tasted the sweetness of the postmodern world, and they found it wanting. I remember Nick saying that about a guy or a gal, I forgot who it was, when he said the guy tasted we were doing college retreats, and this was 50 years ago when I remember him saying they tasted all the world's sweetness, the sweet things of life, and found it wanting. And I think maybe their grandchildren, that would be their grandchildren today, maybe found that the pleasures and the good things of this, the sweet things in this life, the sweetness of this life is wanting. It doesn't make it unsweet. It's not enough. You can't keep eating candy. Someplace along the line, you got to have protein. It's not enough. And one of the advantages of our time is that our young people have tasted the vanities that have been fostered by the West, by our own culture over the last 150 years, especially even more recently, since I think the 60s. I think the 60s were a turning point in the culture where I thought we lost our rootings at that time. And we produced 2 generations that followed that didn't have the rootings that's necessary for a sound social ethic, a sound society, a fundamental society, one of intimacy and love. Look how many of our marriages fail, over half. And these kids are growing up, I think, wondering what is love? What is commitment? What is fidelity? Since they never experienced it. That's a lot of our kids. You know, when I used to get married, when I did weddings in the past, I never questioned whether they would be lasting. Now I hope they last. I went from total belief that the marriages would last, they'd have families, etc. Not perfect, but last. Now I just hope they'll last. I hope that they'll last. And I've done so many annulments over the years to see why they don't last. In many instances, the incapacity to make a commitment. Why they don't come from a culture that shows it. Their homes are not homes of commitment. See? And the culture doesn't. Culture's a fast food culture. Whether it's eating hamburgers at McDonald's or fast food in the terms of the spiritual life. If I'm not immediately satisfied, I'm out. There isn't the sense of the spiritual and moral heroic. And it's nobody's fault. It is just the way the culture's evolved. And I think that to live fruitfully, Aristotle saw this. You had to, and Plato, these ancient Greeks, so you had to live heroically just to be happy, because you had to be able to harness all the disparate emotions in you. That took virtue. You want to be happy, you have to live virtuously. But you need a virtuous society in order to live virtuously. Aristotle saw that, God Almighty, 350 years before the time of Christ. You can't be virtuous in a violent society. You need a society that fosters the virtues, and lives virtuously. Without it, it's very, very difficult. You can get it, and that's called your martyrs. But by and large, it's not easy. So in a sense, we have to rebuild the social structure from the basis up and out and back down again. We have to require of our social institutions moral integrity. Not just efficiency, but integrity. And we have to expect it of ourselves, at least in the family units, that we can at least manage ourselves. We have to foster the virtues of fidelity and love, justice. See, without that, we're vulnerable. We create a world of self-seeking anarchy. And I believe that is the case. I believe we're right on the edge of it. And the church preaching to that world looks foolish. Where in Mark's gospel, it's the Jews that think Christ's crazy. Now, I think the world looks at Christ and the church as crazy. He's nuts. He's out of his mind. No, we're not out of our mind. We believe in the depth of human dignity. We believe in what it is to be human. And we foster that humanity. We foster love, an intimate love, the love of a committed intimacy, as opposed to a flagrantly passing, fleeting intimacy, which lasts today and gone tomorrow. Right? I think that's right. And I think we have to, and Aristotle saw it 350 years before the time of Christ. He was seeing it in Athens, greatest city in the history of humankind, probably. He saw what happened when it revolutionarily fell apart, when its basic foundations were falling apart. Plato did too. You can't understand the rising of Greek philosophy except for the anarchy of Europe, the anarchy of the Hellenic world at that time. And they were trying to restore it, to rebuild it from the ground up to reason and virtue. Right now, I think we need reason, virtue, and I think a fundamental religio-Christian humanism. A deep, deep understanding of human dignity and respect, the inviolability of the human soul, the human spirit, and forming a communion of love. And it is modeled on the cross, self-sacrificial love, not self-interest, self-sacrifice. If you ask what's in it for me, you already lost. If you ask what's in it for her or him, you're going to win. It's interesting. If you sacrifice yourself for the other, you will be fulfilled. You will be the enriched person. You seek yourself, you'll die alone. If my pastoral experience has taught me anything over the last 50 years, self-seekers die alone. Boy, they die alone. There are no tears. There are no tears. There is no sense of loss. Why? Because you were never there in the first place. You took care of yourself. You looked out for yourself. You lived for yourself. You died yourself. And no one cares. But yet those who have loved well, they're mourned not only when they die, they're mourned in memory from that point on. They are remembered with love and gratitude. I think of my own family, my friend Junie, and so many others who loved well. They're never forgotten. They are never forgotten, but they are remembered actively within their heart, the heart of those who have loved them. They are remembered actively with gratitude and intimacy of spirit because they know they have been loved and been loved by. Right? Isn't that neat? That's the truth. That's the wisdom of the cross. The one who sacrifices himself is the one who is fulfilled. The one who takes care of himself is the one who dies alone.